freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 281 of Gun Freedom Radio, where we engage, we educate, and we inform. We are brought to you by azfirearms.com, your nationwide hometown gun shop. I am one of your hosts, Cheryl Todd.
And I'm the other guy, Dan Todd. Our theme today is the knife drawer versus the gun safe. And our guest is Sue Ritter. Sue is the development director for Knife Rights, America's grassroots knife owners organization that is leading the fight to rewrite knife laws in America and forging a sharper future for all Americans. Knife Rights efforts have resulted in enacting 33 bills, repealing knife bans in 23 states and over 100 cities and towns, as well as numerous court victories. Sue has over 40 years of management experience as a development, operational, and marketing professional, including regulatory compliance, financial management, and strategic planning.
Well, welcome to the show, Miss Sue.
Hey, Cheryl. Hi, Danny. How are you guys this morning?
Oh, we're good. And I see that Cheryl, she's a sharper future for America. She also could say you're a cut above the rest.
Oh,
there.
That's
wow.
The
Danny, I'll have to remember that one.
Sue, who would even have thought that we needed to have an organization for knife rights? I mean, a knife.
It's not uncommon for people to say, well, I don't have any problems with my knives. I mean, yeah, why do you exist? Well, the fact is, the NRA has been around for 150 years, getting rid of a lot of really bad laws that have been put on the books over the years. And much like the firearms laws that we have seen from state to state and nationally, the knife laws in our country have come from the Jim Crow laws, the Jim Crow area after the Civil War, trying to keep what they feel are weapons and what we say are essential tools. Because I don't know, I grew up thinking that a knife was a tool. It was something that we used and never thought of it really as a weapon until, I went and saw something in the, movie theater when I was a kid. But those laws have existed, and as they have liked to ban things, as we have more developments in the firearms industry, the same thing has happened in the knife industry. So when an article appeared on the first page of Section B of the Wall Street Journal back in July of 2006, describing a little bitty picnic knife with 1.5 inch locking blade as a deadly tactical knife, Doug, who's been in the knife industry and has his own line of knives he designs.
Your husband, Doug Ritter.
Yeah, my husband, Doug Ritter, who founded Knife Rights. We suddenly realized that, my gosh, there is no actual grassroots owners group. And we are owners, just like firearms owners. We own these tools and we use them in our home, we use them at work, we use them when we go camping, when we go hunting, when we go fishing. There was no such organization for the millions, and I mean, who doesn't have a knife in their kitchen drawer? There was nobody out there. And so Doug started Knife Rights. And that was in 2006. And it's now 2021, and we've filed bills already for this year. Our lobbyist is on his way to North Dakota next week. So we still have a lot of things to change and to fix. We're also working at the federal level to repeal the 1958 Federal Switchblade Act, which, thank you, Hollywood, that's why it exists.
So what is
Dean and-
can you give a short summary of what the 58 Switchblade Act is?
Basically, you cannot import, you cannot do commerce across state lines. Automatics, better known as switchblades. Although we've legalized them in many states, I want to say we're up to 42 or 43. Doug knows those details a little bit better than I do. It is still not legal to do commerce state to state.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been left over from 1958, and those deadly, awful sharks jets who are now all older than we are, and
from the
Ray,
musical.
Yeah, from the musical. Thank you, Leonard Bernstein, and James Dean in Hollywood. That's still on the books.
People don't realize how many people that that can't use both hands.
Well, yeah,
right,
exactly. And frankly, I think Cheryl and I have said this once before. I can get my chef's knife out of my knife block quicker than I can open an automatic knife. And it's, again, like firearms laws, they don't make a whole lot of sense. They just don't. So we're working to repeal that. And our bill is the Knife Owners Protection Act. It was filed again by Congressman Andy Biggs of CD5 here in Arizona, because we did start a new legislative section. And, we're just going to keep working it. These things don't happen overnight, as we have found there are some things, as we've seen in the past 2 weeks, that do happen overnight.
Yeah.
But it's
against our rights, but
yeah,
it's like if you're trying to fight for your rights,
they're trying to take them back.
Be ready to be in it for the long haul.
Right, we're going to be in it for the long haul. So,
well, and we're glad that you're there. And I've heard you refer to Knife Rights, your organization, as the second front in the defense of the Second Amendment. And go ahead and elaborate on that.
Well, Cheryl, you know those 27 words better than just about anybody I know. I mean, they must be tattooed on the inside of your eyeballs. It says arms. It does not say firearms. It says arms. And if you read the Heller decision, there are references to edged tools. And it is overall something that we use in our everyday life, but should we ever need to get into a situation, it is also a tool that can be used to save your life, or the life of a loved one, a friend, whatever. So we do get coverage under the Second Amendment. And we are the second front, in addition to everybody out there in the firearms industry and all the numerous great organizations that are out there. We are also fighting for our Second Amendment rights. And we're just a little bit different twist on it. But we're very much a part of that Heller decision, and very much something that needs to be protected. And gosh, I just can't imagine lives without my knives. I mean, but people see them as other than what we see them as we all also feel about our firearms.
Well, it feels to me like it's just any opportunity to exert control over our individual behavior.
Oh, it is
our individual
control.
lives.
Well, what were the Jim Crow laws? What were they trying to do after the Civil War? It was control. It was trying to control whoever they felt shouldn't, couldn't. They were going to make sure they couldn't. Well, that's not the founders of our country and the writers of our Constitution had in mind.
Right.
Absolutely.
I can't believe that, I mean, a person with a knife pouch or, a knife, that people would think, oh my gosh, he's got a weapon. He's scary. I would guess I'm just raised around everything. It's a tool.
Mhm.
It is
It is a
hey,
tool. It is a tool. But as we saw in New York, Danny, New York City, and we fought the city of New York, New York County, which other people know as Manhattan. We fought them in federal court for 9 years on a basically civil rights action. People were being remember the old stop and frisk that they got rid
Yep.
of? Well, there's knife laws in New York that make no sense to those of us in the firearms industry or in the knife industry. In New York, you have to completely conceal your knife. Well, so they couldn't stop and frisk people anymore. So what they did was, if they saw a clip on the outside of your pocket, or if they saw what they thought, meaning the police, they would stop you, and could be as simple as saying, do you have a knife? And honest people will go, well, yes, I have a knife. And then the police officer would say, well, can I see that? And you'd say, sure, officer, no problem. And then he'd do however many times it took for him to wrist flick that knife open. And at that point, they would charge him with violation of a gravity knife and or an automatic knife. And in New York, it wasn't just like a slap on the hand. It could actually you would end up in jail for a year. If you had any professional licenses, you could lose those licenses. If you had priors, you would be going back to prison. And when we finally got into the case and we were able to dig into this, what we found was over 70,000 people had been arrested.
Mm.
And of that, close to 82% were people of color.
Mm.
And so it really was a criminal justice reform issue as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, finally, we got the governor on the third try, Governor Cuomo, to basically get rid of the gravity knife issue. And I mean, it was 5 years in Albany, just really hammering him. And we were this close to actually going to the Supreme Court, this close.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, the mayor, de Blasio, and Cyrus Vance Jr., the elected district attorney of New York County, begging with Governor Cuomo, he signed the bill. And that information it's a very interesting read, but they were using racial profiling. They were stopping people just because they could.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And that is a direct violation of our civil rights.
It sure
So,
Absolutely. And they weren't, there was no intent evident in their behavior to
no,
do anything wrong with the
no,
knives.
no, one
These
of
are
our
people just
one
having
of our
possession of it.
plaintiffs, one of our plaintiffs, who was an architect, was walking down the street and he had something clipped to his pocket, and the police officer asked him, is that a knife? And he said, no, officer. And he pulled out his Mont Blanc fountain pen, which he had clipped to his jean pocket. And then the officer said, do you have a knife? And he said, well, yes, officer, I do. And he had it completely concealed.
Mm.
He pulled it out. The officer was able to wrist flick it open, and he was arrested.
Wow.
That is
Yeah.
just so
So is it
invasive.
still against the law to carry a knife in a shield on the outside of your pants in
Yes.
New York?
Yes.
So
Yes.
how many people know that? I mean,
Well,
how many people travel to New York?
Well, we have an app for that. Knife Rights has an app called Legal Blade, and it's free. It's on the Apple and the Google Play. So we're on both the Apple and the Android platforms. And that really, we keep that up to date as laws change. And, just as we have publications that tell us what we have to do to travel with our firearms, the Legal Blade app allows people traveling to know what the laws are in the various states and cities.
Wow.
So,
Sue, that's great that you do that.
yeah.
But, half the people in the country would not even think they would need.
Absolutely. And, in all the other states, if you think about it, usually it's the reverse.
Right.
Right. You have to carry open with a knife. But in New York, they're a little different, I mean, they're not like
apparently.
So you could be charged with almost like a felony charge because you carry your case knife in a leather pouch on, say, your electrician or whatever. And
they arrested electricians and tradesmen throughout the 5 boroughs in New York. I mean, so nobody was immune from this.
Wow.
So
well, thank God you guys took up the fight.
We fixed it.
Yes. Wow. That is incredible. Yeah. So many people owe you a debt of gratitude that may not even know that knife rights exists is a thing.
There you go.
and how many people don't know that our Second Amendment is a thing. And when you mentioned the 27 words, that's what you were referring to. And it very clearly says a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear, and there's the word, arms.
And shall not be infringed.
And yes,
shall not be infringed.
Gun rights for dummies clause that our founders realized people would try to twist and turn, and they just said, you know what? Here it is. Here's the gun rights for dummies shall not be infringed, period. End of story. And the right shall not be infringed to keep and bear. What is it? Arms. But we automatically go firearms.
Well, watch movies, that are of historic nature. They had bayonets.
Mm-hmm.
What are bayonets? They had swords. They had daggers. They were fighting close.
So
Absolutely.
your headquarters are in Arizona, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
We're
Arizona,
in the Phoenix area.
Arizona doesn't have any restrictions for knives, do they?
There are some restricted areas like schools.
Mm-hmm.
The typical areas where when we did do knife law preemption, we actually had pretty good laws here in Arizona. But what we did not have was knife law preemption, which is like firearms preemption. In other words, individual cities could have laws that were much more restrictive than the state. Mm-hmm. So as we have worked for years and years to get firearms owners preemption throughout the country and individual states, that was one of the first things that knife rights wanted to do. And Arizona was the first state that we did do preemption in. I mean, when we started to look into this, I was thinking, oh, wow, I've been breaking the law. When I leave my home in the East Valley and drive through a couple of cities to go to our kids' home in the Biltmore area, because I like to cook and I like my own knives. So I was taking my cooking knives with me to the kids' house because every Sunday night we did dinner together and I was breaking the law. Who knew?
Right.
So this way they're not here anymore, but I don't have to worry about that. No matter where I go in the state of Arizona, I am covered by one law, with the exception of Indian reservations. That is federal land. And automatics, you still have issues with that. So that is another reason why we are trying to get the Switchblade Act repealed at the federal level. Because, how many tribes do we have in the Phoenix metro area? 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, I don't even know half the time when I'm driving through reservation.
No, you can't go to one reservation. You can't go one place to another in Arizona without crossing the reservation.
Without crossing, yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely. And
so
it's like that in many states.
Yeah. You kind of put a thought in my process here, because like, if I go to a school for a job to pick something up and I've got a knife in my pocket, I'm breaking the law and I didn't even know it, so
it's that's why I'm saying, get our Legal Blade app It's free.
Right.
And it's
Yeah,
really easy to use. It's user friendly. We designed it for people to use it and
that's
to work on
awesome.
your cell phone.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
what it feels like to me is this is almost like, a bunch of laws that are written to just funnel people into the judicial system to get them on the wrong
Well,
side of it. And it ruins lives, it ruins careers, it
yes,
wrecks people financially.
yes,
It's
yes.
it's ridiculous. And if we were
And
clued into how
well,
bad
and
this
Cheryl, we've
was,
seen that for years with firearms. You know,
absolutely,
Yeah.
the
absolutely.
dreaded New York metropolitan, tri-state area. It's bad. It's bad,
It's
and
so
we
bad.
shouldn't be living like that.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I'm sorry.
No, no, I'm good. That's
So we've talked a couple of times about,
Yeah.
how normal, how unstigmatized we thought knives were, because
Right.
every home has,
Right.
this whole drawer full of these sharp instruments, right?
Right.
And nobody seems to get terribly unnerved about that in general terms. Uh,
Yeah.
Although the
Unless
same,
there's somebody who writes laws.
I
right.
suppose so, right? And then they're like, hey, how do we get a bunch of people in trouble with the law based on this
Right.
drawer full of sharp instruments? But,
Right.
in my home, I have two grandchildren who visit all
Right.
the time. Right at their eye level, here's this drawer full of these sharp
Right.
instruments, right? And they open it themselves. They reach
Yeah.
in.
Oh
And you know what they grabbed? They grabbed the spoon that they were after. They completely ignore the knives, close the drawer, and go about their business. And nobody freaks out
yeah.
because
No.
why? Because we've trained our children from the earliest ages
Right.
how to safely and responsibly interact with those tools.
Well,
And
it's responsibility. I mean, I grew up in a home, and my grandparents also. My dad was a hunter, and my grandfather was a hunter. There were always firearms in their homes, but we knew that those were dads and those
mhm,
were grandpas,
mhm,
and they had a purpose, and that
mhm,
purpose wasn't our purpose. That
right,
wasn't something that we interacted with, and
right,
we were taught respect and responsibility. And
absolutely.
that seems to be one of the things that we're having a lot of problems with overall in our homes and in our communities. And it is dependent upon parents and grandparents to teach this type of respect and responsibility, and
Absolutely.
to own it.
Right.
And
Parents do not do that right now.
Well, we've
well,
gotten so freaked out, and we're
oh yeah.
told to be afraid of
Well, and
guns, and now
w-
we're finding out certain knives in certain places we're supposed to be freaked out and afraid of them,
when we
and
first
we
bought
go
our
for it.
home,
Why do we fall for it? Go
right?
ahead, Sue.
Well, when we bought our home in 2004, um, the house had two small children in it. And the first thing we had to do was go around and take off all the baby locks,
Mm,
because there were locks on every single cabinet, on every single drawer. I mean, they were everywhere. And I was thinking to myself, I didn't have that. When I
mhm,
was growing up,
mhm,
we didn't have that. Our kids' age, I don't remember any parent having that
mm-mm.
um, on their drawers or their cabinet doors. And maybe it's because we didn't have so many distractions,
Hmm.
and our parents interacted more with us, our grandparents interacted more with us. But I'm not a sociologist, I'm not an anthropologist, but early on, we were taught that these items had a purpose,
Mhm.
and it wasn't our purpose, and we did not need to
Right.
interact with them. And as you said, Cheryl, what do kids do? They reach in the drawer, they open the drawer, they reach in and they get a spoon because they're looking to get something to eat with. And the
Mhm.
spoon is what they get.
Mhm.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And the same thing, the way that I grew up, as you're alluding to, uh I grew up in a household where guns were as normal and
Oh, yeah.
prevalent as, having a knife full of drawers. I mean, a drawer full of
Drawer full of
knives.
knives. Yeah.
And, none, me and my three brothers,
Yeah.
who my dad was a single parent. He was gone a lot.
Yeah.
He wasn't there to sit there and watch over us all the time. He
No.
taught us what the tool was for, what the gun was for, what it was not for.
Right.
Never once did a household full of three rambunctious boys and myself ever get one of those
No.
guns and go
No.
play with it or use it for
No.
the wrong reason.
No.
And the key to it was education,
Right.
familiarization, and
Right.
de-stigma, the demystification, right?
Right.
They weren't like, ooh, we have
Ooh.
a gun, right? It was like,
Right.
do we go, ooh, we have a chainsaw. Let's go play
Yeah.
with
Ooh, do we
that,
have a shovel?
My dad probably wished we would have, spent more time with the
Yeah.
shovel
Said, ooh,
and,
we have a shovel.
doing some yard work.
Well,
But
kids are
Right.
curious. Kids are curious, right?
Yes,
And if you teach
absolutely.
a kid early that, hey, this is what this does, now they know what it is, they don't care.
Well,
They move on. But
well,
if
yeah.
you hide it from them, if you say, oh, never go in this corner because this is where we keep the sacred
Well,
stuff
you
that
know
you're
what
not
else,
supposed to
Danny?
see.
And you know what else? It was when we got old enough, if we wanted to go shooting, we could have gone
Right.
shooting. If we wanted, I mean,
Right.
it was just part of our everyday life. We just didn't think of it.
Yeah.
And the shock that I had that really drove some of this home was at one time I wanted to do Knife Rights M&Ms in red, white, and blue. And I reached out to the Mars Company, which is the manufacturer of M&Ms. They also do Ethel chocolates and other brands and everything. And I reached out to them and I put in the order and I got a email response saying, no, I'm sorry, we cannot do personalized M&Ms for your organization. So I called up the head of marketing and said, what do you mean you can't do? Well, knives are not celebratory. They have, it's just, we don't feel that we should have our product being affiliated with something like knives. Now, they do personalize M&Ms for Northrop Grumman missile systems, missile delivery systems, all of that stuff. But somehow anything to do with knives was not celebratory. It was evil. It was nasty. And I basically said, how do you cut a birthday cake without a knife? And I just had dead air, crickets, nothing. And at that point, it was like, okay, fine, thanks. And
that is part of the cultural.
it's part of the
attack.
cultural.
And just trying to make anybody that has any connection to firearms or knives,
right,
as somebody that you don't want to associate with, as some
right,
kind of fringe element in
right,
our world. And the people that forged this nation and created the opportunity for us to even have a constitution, they could have never, the people of today could never, ever do it because we're so skittish about
yeah, about everything.
We got to be sure
Yeah.
that our neighbor and our neighbor's neighbor are okay with everything we're thinking
Right,
and everything we're
right,
doing
right.
before we can act, apparently. And it's really unfortunate and so telling that, something like the M&M's company has involved themselves in
Right.
this in a political, really in a
Yeah,
political way, I
statement.
think.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
Well, that
really-
seems to be kind of popular these days. So,
oh gosh, it
but
sure does.
this was a number of years ago, and I just thought to myself, wow, you just took all the joy out of me ever having a handful of M&Ms again.
Yeah.
So talk about not celebratory.
Yeah. I
But
think your
yeah,
candy
it's,
isn't celebratory. How about that?
yeah, yeah. Well, in my case, it just is just added weight if I'm not careful.
But when I was a kid, we used to get candy that was shaped like a knife or a gun.
How's
Oh
that?
yeah,
I mean, you could buy it. It was
Right.
toy, gun,
Oh,
candy.
I got you.
You know,
Yeah.
you could buy candy.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
what are we doing?
well, again, it's this stuff has been such a part of our lives because they are our tools. And the other thing I know Cheryl and I have talked about, Danny, and maybe you and I haven't talked about was knives when you get into the custom knife world, even the custom kitchen knife world, these things are works of art.
Yes.
They are mechanical marvels. I mean, it is truly a craft and a form of art.
Right.
Some of these knives should be in museums. They are that amazing.
I agree.
And so there's that aspect of knives as well. There
There's
are so many
collectors,
collectors
there's
out
people
there.
uses,
Oh yeah,
there's everything. Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right, exactly.
But there's that one guy that was on TV that used a knife as a weapon, and so now everybody needs to be afraid of knives.
It's just crazy. The stuff
Yeah.
that we buy into and do our little head bob. Oh,
Right,
yeah, that's
right,
bad.
What
Oh,
about
we
cans of
need more
gasoline?
laws.
Gasoline
don't
cans
go
should
there
be.
Give them
with
any
me.
more ideas.
Don't give them any more. Yeah, Danny,
Yes.
stop.
But it's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is. So we have here in Arizona, since we're both Arizonans, a
Yes.
huge event coming up.
Yes.
It is our annual Celebrate and Protect the Second Amendment event.
Right.
Dare
Yeah.
we call it a rally and gasp,
Ooh,
right?
ooh,
To call it a
ooh, wow.
rally or a gathering of people. So this
Yeah.
is going to be on Saturday,
I think we
February.
ought to call it a party, Cheryl.
Absolutely. A party.
It is a party.
Could we call it a peaceful protest?
You can't have a party unless
we
you
do
have
that?
cake. Can't have a party unless you have cake, and you can't have cake unless you have a knife to cut it with.
Oh man.
There you
just
go.
unraveled the whole thing, Dan.
Thanks,
So,
Danny.
yeah. So on Saturday, February 20th, on the grounds of the Arizona State Capitol,
Right.
it is going to be a gorgeous day. I've already checked the weather.
Oh,
it's going to be in the
good.
mid 70s, cloudless sky, 10
Wear your
a.m.
sunscreen.
Yes, yes. 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We're going to have speakers. We're going to have food vendors. We're going to have people selling cool
Yeah.
stuff out there. We're going to have a junior Patriot Park for the kids to
Isn't that
enjoy. This
great?
is a family friendly,
Yeah.
amazing event. And this year, you are one of our speakers.
I know. It's I'm really excited. I'm really looking forward to being there that day. And what a better thing to celebrate than our freedom. I mean, because this is very much our freedom. And as you said, do we dare call it a rally? Do we dare call it a gathering? And to me, it's what a better day, what a better way to spend your Saturday than being with your friends, people who love our country, respect our civil rights, respect the Bill of Rights, and who come together to enjoy each other's company, learn about new things, meet new people, and have a good time on a sunny Saturday in February in Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, you can't beat that. I mean, you really can't. So
I agree with you 100%.
Yeah.
And we're
Yeah.
so excited to
Yeah.
be able to hear from you on this topic of knife rights. And, in this last year, we've had huge news about at least 8.5 million brand new gun
Oh, yeah.
owners in the nation. I don't know if that has also translated to other tools of self-defense
Well,
like knives.
I can tell you it 2020 was a record year for knife sales.
See, we're not
Record
hearing
year.
that, but that doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me.
Well, record year. You look at AOB, American Outdoor Brands. I mean, their business has just gone off the charts. You look at a lot of, keep in mind, a lot of knife companies are still family owned and they do not report results. But we know from our retailers and from the manufacturers, it's been a record year for knife sales. Totally just unbelievable. The factories have been running at full bore the entire year.
What if you could leave all of these people who have come to this place in their life that they understand self-defense in a new way, and whether they're a first-time gun owner, maybe they're a first-time knife owner, if you had one thing that you could leave them with, what would that be? What would you impart to them?
Well, you know what, Cheryl, the first thing, being a firearms owner as well is, safety and training. But then you also know I play in politics a little bit. And what I'd like to say to them is your vote matters.
Yes.
And it really is important that when we look at a candidate, when we look at a piece of legislation, when we look at how we live our lives, to remember that your vote matters, and you need to evaluate the entire picture. And for those of those people who have suddenly felt the need to have some way to protect themselves, how would you feel if that was suddenly taken away? And you know, the same with knives. You know, as Danny said, so many people out there have to have additional assistance to even open a knife. I have rheumatoid arthritis in my hands. I'm the poster child for an automatic knife. But your vote matters. And you had the right and the freedom to go buy the firearm you wanted to buy. And not only is it a form of self-defense, but this is when I go back to get out there and shoot it. Go shooting, bring a friend to the range, join a firearms club. I mean, I'm a member of the Well-Armed Woman. We've been having our meetings virtually. You know, I have lots of friends, Girl in a Gun, Shoot Like a Girl. There are so many great organizations out there. Be involved, get involved.
That's
the nicest people, and you will meet. Yes, there are some nasty people out there, but overall, the nicest people I know have been in the firearms industry and or the knife industry. Owners, when we get together and have a good time and we go shooting, or we look at each other's knife collection and have a great time. But you know, your vote matters.
absolutely. I don't think I could have said that any better myself, but it did make me realize that, you know, we hear about firearms trainers. We have tons
Right.
of firearms trainers, especially here in Arizona, because we have so much,
Oh yeah.
so many days of good weather
Oh
until
yeah.
it feels like we're standing on the face of the sun outside.
Yeah. Well, summer is coming in 2 weeks after the party on the 20th.
Oh,
So.
it is. It's out there waiting for us. Summer,
Mhm.
beautiful summer.
Oh, beautiful.
But you know, we don't often hear about, are there trainers for knives?
Yes, there actually are. And there are self-defense courses that you can take with knives. You know, they're available out there on the internet. I can't tell you anybody off the top of my head, besides which I don't want to say that one is better than the other. And but yes, there are courses out there. The other thing there are courses out there is learn how to make a knife.
Ooh.
Yeah, there are lots of fun classes out there and schools, and they will teach you to forge a blade. They will teach you to sharpen it. They will teach you to put it together. The one thing that we have found about the knife community, especially within the custom knife makers, they love to teach their craft. They take great pride in what they do. And they're called hammer-ins, with, hammer, Hammer, in. There are forging classes all over the country. Most of these people are master bladesmiths. And it's a great vacation. It's a great experience. And I've gone to a couple of them in the last few years. And again, you won't meet a nice group of people. I mean, everybody is there to learn, and you have to just appreciate that these craftsmen, these more seasoned, experienced, those of us, want to pass this trade, this way of making a living and or just having fun onto the next generation. And the same with gunsmithing. We see that. I mean, people They want to learn how to be a gunsmith. So, yes.
That's right. And you can make you could set up a shop at your home to make knives and,
Yes.
to make custom knives. And I'm sure that some have started from their homes. I've seen beautiful knives. I've seen knives that were $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 that
Oh,
just
yeah.
beautiful
And
work.
and I've seen 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 15, 30, 40, $50,000 knives. And you know what? They're worth every penny of it.
Yeah. I
They
went to a
are.
show in Las Vegas. It was antique arm show.
Oh,
They
yes.
had a special
after
area
SHOT
for
Show.
knives, and it's beautiful. I mean, there's just tables and
Unbelievable.
tables. Yes. And
Yeah.
they take.
And you think about knife making's been around for millennium, forever and ever. I mean,
Right.
one
Way
of the
before
nice
firearms.
before firearms. One
Yeah.
of the best shows I've ever seen on PBS was they went back to how the Norse, the Vikings made knives,
Mhm.
and they replicated that process. And it was a
Oh.
master bladesmith here in the United States that they did the show around, and he did it the way they supposedly did it. And it was
Right.
So
fascinating.
cool.
And
So cool.
Sue, we're
Yeah.
thankful for your organization because I mean, if you
Well-
look back in the history of firearms, there was a time that you could have a firearm, you didn't have to go register it, you didn't
Oh,
have to
yeah.
go, and people made guns, all that stuff, and they slowly eroded that away from us.
Mhm.
We're in that stage with knives too. If we don't have people like you there to stop it before it really gets heavy, then
Yeah, well,
we're lost.
listen, knife rights is a three-legged stool. It's Doug, my husband Doug Ritter, Todd Rathner, our lobbyist, and myself. And I always laugh that I'm around to make sure the guys are in the right place on the right day to testify on the right bill or be at the right deposition. But we work together as a team, and we could not do it without our members, without our donors, without our sponsors. And, the other thing is I always say about knife rights is we're all about creating jobs. And the more knives you can buy, the more jobs you create, and it's good for our economy as well. So,
Right. So how does a person join or help with the knife rights?
right. Well, www.kniferights.org is our website. You will also find us on Facebook as Knife Rights, and we are on Instagram. So
That is
but go to our
fantastic.
website. Our bills that we've passed are on there, links to all of the various articles and things that have been written or done are on that site in one location.
Are you facing any of the censorship that some of us in the gun industry feel that we are facing on the social
Well,
media platforms?
No, but we have all let's say like a Smith and Wesson or a Ruger, whatever. The social media platforms have not been very friendly to anything that they consider, quote, a weapon. We can talk about advocacy things. We can request, you see, there's Knife Rights, the 501c4 membership organization. And then there is a Knife Rights Foundation. And the foundation is the one who is there to educate, to provide. That is the group that does the lawsuits, that is involved in all that. The foundation was the one who was involved with the lawsuit in New York and other lawsuits across the country. It was also the foundation that did the Legal Blade app. Now, that we get less pushback on. But knife rights in general, we have to be extremely careful on any of the social media platforms.
Right.
Yeah, I believe it. I do believe that. All right. And your organization is fueled on fundraising. And
Yes,
I know
it is.
every year you have an amazing
Well,
fundraiser.
yes, it's called The Ultimate Steal. And hoping around 1st of April, we will kick it off. With travel and everything else being so restricted, and my gosh, when was the last time we saw each other in person? And
Yes,
we just
been
live
a
on
while.
opposite sides of the county.
Mhm.
But around the 1st of April.
Very good.
And where's that going to be? Do you have any idea where it's going to be at?
Ultimate Steel it's on our website. All the information is on our website.
Okay.
So
Very good.
Fantastic.
it's
Which
not an
say-
in-person event.
Okay.
Right. Yes.
We've been virtual for a long time.
Yeah. Well, it works. And,
Yeah.
you get beautiful pictures of the items that you can, try to win and spend
Yeah.
money on. And I
Yeah.
love it. So,
Yeah.
and that is kniferights.org.
Org.
Sue Ritter, thank you so
Cheryl,
much. Thank you to
Thank
you.
you. It was great to see you and Danny.
Thank you, Sue.
Absolutely. You and Doug, your husband, and of course, Todd Rathner, the three of you out there changing the world to give us a sharper future.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Thanks, Sue.
Bye.
Bye. See you at the rally.
Yes.
All right.
Sometimes you just cut me up with that
Oh,
puns that you do. I wish people could really realize, if you look at like I said earlier, if you look at the history of firearms and how back in the 1800s and even all the way up to the 20s, 30s, the early 30s, that, you wanted a gun, you just went to the local hardware store and you could buy a Thompson machine gun for like $25 right over the counter. And then what happens? We get these stupid criminals that decide that they're going to go and rob banks and stuff. And that's even not that many, but they affect the whole United States because 40, 50 criminals that decide they're going to go, instead of taking care of those criminals, they got to punish all of us. Well, you keep that in mind because knives are on the same route. There was a time you couldn't carry a knife that had such a long blade. So you could have only a certain length blade. There was times that you couldn't have a switch. Arizona, you couldn't have a switchblade years ago, as far as I remember. At least that's what my parents told me. So, and now you can have a gravity knife or a switchblade knife. And there's a lot of collector knives out there. There's World War II switchblade knives and gravity knives and automatic knives from the Army. Germany had them. A lot of different organizations had them. So anyway, if we're not careful, like we weren't careful with firearms, because we should have said no right at the start, it could happen with knives too.
Boy, it sure could. And it just always boggles my mind how we humans, we and, the citizens of whatever country, how we allow people to package an idea for us with only one way to view it. Right. And so if they tell you that a switchblade knife is somehow, oh my goodness, gasp, a switchblade knife, so it can only be used for bad things, only, period. Right. And the only person that would ever have a switchblade knife is somebody who is of bad character, is a fringe person, and is out there seeking to do harm. That's the only way you can think about it. Like, I just don't accept that for myself. That's not what I've taught or what we've taught our daughter, or not what we're going to teach our grandchildren. But how many of us out there are falling for that kind of thought process? And maybe it's not just knives. Maybe it's not just guns. What other things are we allowing other people? This is just rhetorical. We're not answering it for you. What are we allowing other people to prepackage for us as an idea that there's only one way to look at it, and we must accept what we're told without question and behave accordingly?
I have one that was a hot topic for a while. Video games. Video games. So instead of you managing your kids to
or
what
your
they
own
can,
time,
or your own time, and watching how and what they do with video games, well, just outlaw the ones. And here's how they start. We'll grade them first. We'll say mature audience. We'll say violent. We'll put all these things in here so that later we can go, those have to go away. Right. And so we had a daughter. We
still have a daughter.
Right. They had violent games when she was a kid, Grand Theft Auto, which I don't recommend, but that's if you like it,
It's
that's
just not our
right.
cup of tea.
Right.
And it wasn't hers either.
Right.
She was
But
like, this is a stupid way to spend my time.
right.
Now the next person might feel like, no, it's pure fantasy. It's just
Right.
fun and never do any harm. Never, it doesn't impact their life in a negative way.
No.
And so what they do is they find somebody, the real fringe, right? The somebody's out there that it is negatively impacting their life and they're not using wise, sound judgment, whether it's the human themselves or whether it's the children of parents that maybe need to be a little more clued in. And they hold them up as this is
The example, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones.
This is your future.
But we have that
if
with
you
everything.
Don't.
We have that with cars.
Mhm.
People that drive cars are not responsible.
Mhm.
We have people with alcohol. We
Mhm.
have it with marijuana. We have it with everything out
Mhm.
there. There is a reason for others who want to ban it.
Yeah.
Just because they don't like how, you know,
And it's
the
always
attorney,
done
Mark,
on some
Mark,
other,
who's the
right?
attorney we, I can't
Mark
think
J. Victor that was
of,
on.
Mark
the
J.
other day.
Victor
Mhm.
said it like this. And I really believe this. It really sunk in my head. If it doesn't affect me, leave it alone.
Yes.
You know, what your neighbor does next door in his house has no concern to me as long as it doesn't affect me or my family.
Yeah. It's this crazy idea. You know what he calls it? Calls it the live and let live lifestyle.
Right.
Isn't that crazy? It's actually how I grew up. I was told, keep your hands to yourself. What your brother does is none of your concern until,
Affects you, right?
until it personally affects you. And then my parents would do something about it. But anyway, we could talk about this forever. I hope that as many of you that you can come out on the day of the Celebrate and Protect Your Second Amendment Rights event will do so, because these are the conversations that we're going to have out there. We're going to meet friends that we haven't seen in a while. We're going to make new friends, get ourselves filled up with, you know what? The whole world hasn't gone completely crazy. Look at all of these people who are still believing and working towards the principles that we inherited free of charge from people who fought, bled, starved, and died to secure those freedoms. And for those of you who can't see me but can only hear me on the audio replay of this, I am holding up our precious and unique American Constitution, which takes about an hour to read. Spend the time. Please read it.
And there's people that we've elected as officials that don't understand, believe, or follow this.
Yet they
What
take
are they
an oath.
doing in our office? What about that governor in New Jersey?
Mhm.
It's above my pay grade to know what the Constitution is about.
Yeah.
How is that possible? How? You tell me. If you
Sounds
vote
like
for
he really
somebody,
doesn't want to keep his job for very long.
if you vote,
Voters
I
in
hate
New
to say
Jersey.
it, if you vote for somebody that doesn't follow the Constitution and believe in the Constitution, then you made a mistake.
Absolutely. All right.
Hey, we have to go.
Do need to get out of here. We want to thank our awesome guest today,
Yes.
Sue Ritter of Knife Rights. I want to thank all of our amazing listeners all across this nation and other nations. If there is internet, we're finding that there are people who are hungry for the information that our awesome guests bring forward, our subject matter experts that we interview on here. So thank you to our listeners all across the world, because you could be doing anything with your time
What's that show that was?
and you spend it with us. and
What's
we
that show
value
from when we were little kids that said, "And I see Bobby,
that.
and I see Johnny,
What
and I
is
see
that?
Brenda,
Romper Room.
and I see Carolyn, and I see." Thank you for joining
Thank
us.
you guys so much. We value you. And if you want to go back and watch the replay, you just go to gunfreedomradio.com, click the on demand tab, and binge listen
To your heart's content, darling.
all of the shows that we have there. If you want to see photos and bios and links to the works of all of our guests, click the guest tab, and it is a tremendous resource. And we don't hate it when you spend time there. All right. We want to impress on you like never before. Pray for our nation.
Yes, please. Hard, double take.
Pray for those that are put in positions of responsibility, our leaders.
Yes.
Even the ones that maybe you don't like too much.
There's a lot of those, but yes, we still have to pray for those too.
Maybe especially for the ones you
We
don't
also
like
could
too
pray for
much.
the recall system.
The recall system?
Yes,
Yeah,
the
like
system
going
that will
on
allow
in.
you to recall, which they said that the Newsom one,
Uh-huh.
Gavin Newsom one, is beyond. It's going to happen.
Wow.
They're at the point where it's, instead of likely not going to happen, it's going to happen.
Wow.
So thanks
And
for
that's
that and pray for that.
California.
Yes,
That's the governor of
California. Yep,
California.
yep.
So if you are in California and you feel like maybe Gavin Newsom needs to be recalled, you might want to check into that effort.
Call him up and
uh,
ask him what he thinks about the Constitution.
Yeah, that's a good idea. You don't even have to do that. Just look at his
Right.
behavior over the last little bit, and it'll tell you what he thinks about the Constitution, because you will know them by their fruits. All right, we have got to get out of here. Have an amazing week. Be good to each other, and God bless.
Bye-bye.